Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It is your guy, Boulanger. Up next, Ravens versus Bengals. Big time win. Let's talk. So, I know all of you watched the game, and if you have not, you watched Sports Center, you went on YouTube and watched highlights, man. And if you watched it live, man, you were on the edge of your seat the entire game trying to figure out how this thing would turn out, right? And I know at one point, man, when we were down 38-28, I know that it was a little more difficult to think that the Baltimore Ravens could pull this thing out, especially as the Bengals were making play after play after play on the defense. But Lamar Jackson put on the cape. He took it off and handed it to Justin Tucker. Justin Tucker put on the cape. He handed it over to Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry put on the cape and handed it back to Justin Tucker to close this game out, man. So let me give a few shout outs, man, to get this video started. Let me give a shout out to Lamar Jackson, who stayed poised, man, who, turned into Action Jackson in that third and fourth quarter, man, to make big time play after big time play. And in fact, man, the one play where he escaped 2 sacks basically to deliver a strike to Isaiah Likely in the end zone, nobody else in the league makes that play. Because most quarterbacks are going to fall on that ball and just take that loss. So, man, shout out to Lamar Jackson for just staying poised, man, and delivering in the clutch. Let me give a shout out, man, to Justin Tucker, man, for stepping up and hitting a big time 56-yard field goal, which I know had to give him a boost of confidence as he has struggled over the last year from 50 plus. So for him to step in and kick that time field goal, man, was big. It was clutch with Justin Tucker, man. So shout out to Justin Tucker. Shout out to Marlon Humphrey, who made the interception defending Jamar Chase in order to give us an opportunity to even have a chance to pull out a victory, man. So shout out to Marlon Humphrey, man, for not dropping his head, not falling asleep when the game seemed like it could have been over, and making the play that he needed to make. Let me see who else. Shout out to the Baltimore Ravens offensive line, man, who put some good pass blocking together on yesterday. We had a difficult time run blocking, but we put together some good pass blocking for about 75% of that game, man. So shout out to the offensive line, specifically Ronnie Stanley and Tyler Lindenbaum, who kind of kept the offensive line together, man. So shout out to them. Shout out to the tight ends, Isaiah Likely, Charlie Kolar, Mark Andrews, who all showed up as a collective and did damage in this game. And then shout out to Zay Flowers, who stepped up, and Rashad Bateman, who stepped up and made timely catches, man, downfield to move the chains or score touchdowns, man. So, man, it's just, I know I mentioned everybody on the offense, basically, and then Marlon Humphrey on the defense, man. But big time win on yesterday, man. So let's talk about what we learned, man, from the Baltimore Ravens and this win. I think we learned that Todd Monken is finding his groove a little more with play calling. For the last 3 weeks, this Baltimore Ravens team has put up some good yardage pretty consistently as we lead the whole league in yardage. Todd Monken is kind of finding more of a balance between the pass and the run, although we still have those moments where we get clunky and we sputter out. But it looks like Todd Monken is doing better with calling plays. Maybe it'll take us to the halfway point, game 8, something like that, to really kind of find that good blend, right? But what we did learn is that the Baltimore Ravens do have an ability to lean on the passing game when they need to. And yesterday they needed to lean on that passing game. That running game was not going anywhere, which is kind of what I spoke to in the preview 2 videos ago, where I said, hey, what happens when the run game isn't working? Because everybody in the world knows that the Ravens want to come out and run the ball. Can we lean on the pass? And we absolutely did that yesterday. And so I think that we need to flesh out that pass game more. But yesterday it came up big when we needed it to. What else did we learn? We learned that this collection of tight ends is probably the best collection in the league. And I think that getting them on the field more and more, specifically Kolar and Likely, has the potential to create a lot more explosiveness. And that's not to shun Mark Andrews. And I'll talk about Mark Andrews more specifically later on in this week as we approach the trade deadline. But you're seeing Charlie Kolar make more and more plays. He's a little bigger than Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews at 6'6". He has the same kind of hands and equal athleticism, and so I'm glad to see Charlie Kolar get on the field. I'm pretty sure. I think I saw several times where we had 3 tight end sets and so on and so forth. And so I like to see that mix. I like to see the Baltimore Ravens really scheming up what we're going to do from game to game. What else did we learn? We learned that Zay Flowers can be a number one receiver, but he's not necessarily a number one receiver. We watched him get busy early, and then they kind of fell asleep in the middle and didn't go to him, and then he came up big late in that game as well. And so I think that fleshing out this passing game, specifically at the wide receiver group, is going to benefit us short term and long term, especially when we get into the playoffs. And so, did learn, and we knew that the playoffs is dynamic, and I think that continuing to give him opportunities is going to benefit us for sure. What else did we learn? We learned that Ronnie Stanley is looking more like the Ronnie Stanley pre-injury. I'm not saying Pro Bowl or all Pro Ronnie Stanley, but he's definitely looking really well. Specifically in pass blocking, looking really good, holding down that left side. What else did we learn? Well, we didn't learn nothing new from Lamar Jackson other than he is the best playmaker. Now, I'm not saying he's the best quarterback, but he's the best playmaker in all of the NFL. He absolutely is. And so we have to stop denying those facts. TV pundits are going to come out today and are going to wet their pants about what they saw from Lamar Jackson and the Ravens yesterday being able to pull out this big time win. But I don't want them to jump on board. I don't want them to give Lamar Jackson any credit. I don't want them to give a nod to Lamar Jackson. I want them to stay on their side of the fence, so to speak. And the reason why, right, when I come out and I talk about Lamar Jackson, especially from a critical lens, right, it's not saying that he's not great. Right, and I'm not putting anybody ahead of him. I'm just talking about what the performance was in that particular day. But when they come out and talk about Lamar Jackson, they talk about it from a critical lens, a kind of limiting perspective, and we have to stop doing that. They have to be challenged enough and professional enough to know that, you know what, we have to stop putting these limiting expectations and credentials on this dude because he is top notch. We have to stop talking about Joe Burrow and Josh Allen being better, so on and so forth, because the fact of the matter is he can absolutely do things that they cannot do. And so this is not to shun Joe Burrow or Josh Allen, the 2 quarterbacks that he beat over the last couple of weeks. But this is just to highlight how great he has been over the 7 years of his career. Let's jump to the defense. What we learned about this defense is fool's gold. And I'm sorry to say it that way, but it absolutely is. I'm not sure, right? I'm not sure if it's scheme. I'm not sure if Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow are just that lethal to where we can't really defend them enough to kind of slow them down. I'm not sure what that was yesterday, but the Baltimore Ravens gave up another 390 yards passing. And I know that Joe Burrow has elite weapons. He absolutely does. So let's give them some credit for that. But I think that what we learned from this defense is that I think the bigger problem with the secondary is not in the secondary. Let me say that again. I think the bigger problem with the secondary is not in that secondary. I think the bigger problem with the secondary is at the edge rush position. I tried to say early on off season, I tried to say early on in this season that Calvin Noy is having a good year. But part of the reason why the Baltimore Ravens had collected those sacks, specifically by outside linebacker and edge rush position, was not because they were just beating their man, not because they were just beating them with strength to power, bull rushes, speed. It was just because the coverage on the back end held up long enough for them to get there, right? Or, one of those guys chased down the guy from the backside and made a sack. It wasn't because we were just dealing at the edge rush position. And I think that's what we saw yesterday. Part of the reason why the Baltimore Ravens secondary gave up so much in the passing is simply because we just don't have a guy who can just go get the quarterback. Odafe Owe does good against the run. Calvin Noy does pretty good. If we can make the quarterback hold the pass, but we don't have that guy who can just beat his man and go get the quarterback. We just don't. And that's what we're seeing show up. We don't have a guy that anybody fears. And I think that the Baltimore Ravens must be on the hunt for somebody who can go get the quarterback. As the trade deadline approaches, I think that it's becoming very, very clear we're going to have to go get a pass rush. We can't wait on David Ojabo to continue to develop and show up. Didn't hear anything from him yesterday. Tavius Robinson obviously has not taken that second year leap as we wanted him to. And Odave Owe, again, like I said, plays good against the run, but does nothing really from a pass rush, getting sacked perspective. And so it looks like the Baltimore Ravens are going to have to scheme up some blitzes and pressures and stunts in order to get pressure. And I think that is the kind of thing that's going to cost us when we get into the playoffs, not having a guy who can go get the job done. So I think that we're going to see the Baltimore Ravens be on the hunt. I know Ndakwe was active, but I'm not even sure if he played yesterday because I didn't hear his name called that I can remember, and I didn't pull statistics to see if he played. But I'm noticing that pass rush is suspect. On the back end, I'm noticing that Marcus Williams has not returned to form. His range is not there. His back end coverage ability is not there, and we're struggling. Eddie Jackson, who was a former ball hawk, not seeing that from him either. So that free safety position, I think, is a struggle point. So I'm looking at Zach Orr to kind of figure it out. Because at this point, we were now back to the worst pass defense in the league, and we're averaging giving up something like 27, 28 points per game, which is not going to win us a championship. And so there are some things I'm going to talk about later on in the week as I talk about the entire AFC North. It's that time where I'll be starting doing the AFC North conversations, probably Wednesdays. And so it's time to have those conversations about the AFC North, the Baltimore Ravens, and kind of what we need to do as the trade deadline approaches. So, man, again, big time win, man. Super cool, man, to see all things on display yesterday. Super cool to see Lamar Jackson handle his business like we know that he can for sure. It's good to see the tight ends get involved. Zay Flowers stay involved. Rashad Bateman make some clutch catches. It was really good to see that Tylan Wallace got in on a big time catch or a couple of catches in the fourth quarter. And it was good to see Derrick Henry take off after being stunted almost the entire game, take off for that 51-yard run and close out that game. So, man, shout out, man, to the Baltimore Ravens. I'm going to be working on this game all the way up until Wednesday. Then I will turn the page and move on to the Commanders starting on Thursday, man. So I'm your guy, Boulanger. This is the GM, and we're out.